Hey everyone, it is Kirsten, and this is the Food, Fitness, Finance Fun Blab. And every week I will be either interviewing an expert in one of those categories or talking myself because my expert canceled at the last minute. But typically I will be with somebody else, so you don't have to just sit and listen to me talk. So anyway, the first week of the month, I will be featuring a blab or an interview on food. The second week of the month, fitness. The third week of the month, finance. And the fourth week of the month, fun. So I want to know what you guys think is fun, because I want to make sure that you guys are getting a benefit out of my fun blab that I do. So what I think is fun is not necessarily what other people think is fun. I think training, I do triathlon. I think training is really fun. I think that hanging out with my dog is fun. I think watching movies is fun. I think personal growth is fun, listening to podcasts, stuff like that. So I might throw some of that in there because, I don't want to stray from who I am and what I think is fun, but I also want you guys to get something out of it. And the majority of people probably don't think those same things are fun. So the woman I was going to have on, she's a mom and a business owner, and she still finds time for herself to do the things she loves and to do fun things. And I thought that'd be really valuable for those of you who are struggling with that. So I will have her on next month. But in the meantime, what I want to talk about today is living in an RV. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I was scrolling through, I was like, what am I going to talk about that's fun? So I was scrolling through my blog, and it's divided into four categories: food, fitness, finance, and fun. And I just looked at the fun category because I was like, I had to have written about fun. It's part of my blog. So one of the first things that came up was an article about living in the RV. So I was like, you know what? People ask me about it all the time. So at least you guys are going to get some good information and possibly learn something new. So feel free to ask questions. You can either ask them in the chat where you just send a message, or there's a little question area too. So feel free to ask questions. I will answer whatever questions you guys asked. And then in advance, I asked a few people what questions they had so that I can make sure to have this be worth your guys' time. So a quick backstory about me living in the RV. About 3 years ago, well, first of all, so my husband and I lived in an RV for 2.5 years. So that's why I'm talking about this, for those of you who don't know. And the reason we decided to do this is because we've been married it'll be 20 years this year. And we, of course, like any couple, we've had our ups and downs. And, I was young. I was 23 when I got married. So my activities and my hobbies and the things I enjoy have changed a lot. And my husband and I we just didn't have very much in common. And I'm a little bit of a workaholic, and I basically worked in all my free time, and my hobby of doing triathlon, especially Ironman, is very time consuming. So between me working all the time and training the other all the time, I just didn't spend a lot of time with my family. And, that's not a good wife of me. And that's, something that, my priorities were just a little bit off. So we had talked about living in an RV like later in life when we retired, how much fun it would be to travel around. And the previous year, so that was 2012. Yeah. The previous year, I actually spent a long weekend in Glenwood Springs, and it was in the spring, and I hadn't done a ton of outdoor training for my triathlon season yet because it was spring, and it's, in Colorado, it's kind of slushy and cold. So I was up there doing, I think I had 3 passion parties over a long weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they were kind of all equal distance from Glenwood. So I'm like, you know what, I'll just stay in Glenwood. I'll drive out, a couple hours each way, whatever it was. And then, but during the days, they were all at night. So during the day, I went swimming in the hot springs. I went running up in the mountains. And then in the evenings, I was just relaxed. I mean, I had my party. I'd come home and put in my orders and just relax. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, like being out on the road in a new place, exploring. I was running in, new places I'd never run before, swimming in the hot springs. And I came home and I was like, oh my gosh, I think let's do this sooner. And my husband's like, okay, because it was kind of his idea anyway. It wasn't really my idea. I was pretty like type A, in a routine, set, anal. I like my stuff the way it is. I like all that changing around is a little challenging for me, but I was like, okay, let's do it. And then the other thing that really wanted me to get going on this is because we didn't have anything in common. And my husband was getting frustrated that I was just working and training all the time. And so I thought this might be a good chance for us to spend more time together. So in January of 2013, I get all this mixed up. So in January 2013, in December of 2012, I was like, let me look at the budget. Let me look at our expenses. Let me look at what's going on and see if we can swing it for next year. So 2013, January, everything was done from the previous year. And I'm like, let's do it. We knew nothing about RVs, nothing. Like we had never had an RV, camped in an RV or anything. So my husband started looking online, asking around, checking things out, learning about RVs. And, every night we would look through the RVs. For those of you who have never looked at RVs, you can get a $5,000 RV and you could get a $500,000 RV and a lot in between. So it was really tough to decide. We still had debt and we still had a lot of bills. So we didn't want to get something super expensive where our payment was really big, but we wanted something like good enough to live in because we were going to be living in it. Everything we owned was going to be in this RV. So we wanted it at least kind of big. But we also didn't know if, one weekend we're like, screw it, this sucks. Let's sell this RV and be stuck with something expensive that would be hard to sell in the winter. So what we decided to do was it was pretty big. It was like 36 feet and, but it was in 1998. So it was pretty old. So it cost us $30,000. So it's pretty big enough to live in, lots of storage areas, lots of storage underneath. But it didn't break the bank. So that's what we went with. We got a lift for my husband's motorcycle, welded onto the back. And then we attached a tow bar from that to my car so we could tow my car. So we spent the next 2 months selling all our stuff, selling our furniture, getting rid of, I remember one time I took 25 bags of stuff to Goodwill. Like we got rid of everything and it was so cleansing and so amazing. It was hard at first, don't get me wrong, but it was easier and easier. And I actually have an article on my blog about this. I call it, and for those of you who are on my Facebook, you see it every once in a while. I'm like, it's Toss It Tuesday. So I started this thing called Toss It Tuesday, where every Tuesday, you toss or give 10 things away. And it just helps with decluttering, clearing stuff out with the old and with the new. And I wrote an article about it. So if you want to know the logistics and my story of Toss It Tuesday, my blog is foodfitnessfinancefund.com. And when I post this video, I'll post the link under it too. But if you just search for Tuesday, it's under the fun section because how fun is tossing stuff? So Toss It Tuesday, I could talk about that next time. It's fun. I better write that down or I totally won't remember. So we got rid of tons and tons of stuff, all of our furniture, all of it. So we had an empty house and we were renting out our house. So everything we owned was in the RV. So it was kind of exciting, we've been married almost 20, or at that point, 17 years. We accumulated a lot of stuff. So people always ask, was that part hard? It was at first because, I was used to stuff, especially like clothes. You're always like, have I worn that in 5 years? No, but I might next year. So you just save it. Whereas, this was really like, am I going to wear this? So I got rid of most of what I got rid of was like shoes and belts and coats and clothes and books because they're so heavy, stuff like that. So Toss It Tuesday, everyone get rid of 10 things every Tuesday. It feels amazing. So we spent 2 months getting rid of everything. And then March 1st, we were on our way. So we had a huge agenda. to our first year because we didn't know we were going to do it until the last minute. So we already had a wedding that we had to be at, a graduation we had to be at. I already had like 4 or 5 races planned all over the US. I had my Passion Parties convention, which was in Vegas. And then we earned a free trip to Disney World for like a week in Orlando through my Beachbody business. So we had all these things already planned. So we thought we were going to stick with that schedule. And, 5 days into our trip, we're like, there's no way we're going to get to everything this year. So we kind of modified some things, took out a couple things. And then at one point, we were in Florida and we were going to go to Utah for me to race and do some parties along the way. And then up to New York where our niece was getting married, or our nephew was getting married, and our niece was graduating from law school. Oh, wait, someone was getting married. Yeah, I think our nephew was getting married. Niece was graduating from law school. And I was doing some races up there. So instead of us going to Utah and then back up to New York, because that would have been like crisscrossing the country and in the RV, it was hard. My husband took the RV just straight up to New York from Florida. And then I actually went on my own in my car over to Utah and then back up. So we changed a lot of things. And that was a challenge for me because like I said in the beginning, I wasn't that flexible of a human being at that time. So somebody asked me, or a lot of people asked me, but today somebody asked me, what did you learn? What are some of the lessons that you learned being out on the road for 2.5 years? And I would say for me personally, that was my biggest lesson was, that you have to be flexible to be successful in life. And the funny thing is, I already knew that. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've owned businesses. My 2 businesses I own now, I've owned one for 10 years and one for 5 years. And I always knew the successful people are the people who are flexible, they're malleable, they roll with the punches, change is good, all that stuff. But it was so hard for me to implement that in my life. That's not true. It wasn't hard for me to implement. I'd force myself to be flexible. But it didn't come naturally at all. And it was hard for me. So by the end of the 2.5 years, that was something that was really easy for me. And the way I made it easy is I found a system. So I kind of worked my routine into being flexible. So I would just, if I knew we were going to a certain place, thank goodness for the internet, I would check out, is there a pool there? Is there a gym there? Is there a health food store there? Or close by, or are we going through? So I could get my needs taken care of that make me a little more high maintenance and a little more anal. And so I would, and you know what, if there wasn't, then at least I would know that. So I wouldn't get there needing like whatever, like dying to swim, but there's no pool within an hour radius. So there's nothing I can do about it. And if there's nothing you can do there's nothing you can do about it. So I would find out in advance. So that was one thing I did, is kind of put these systems in place. The other thing that was really challenging for me is internet. We didn't have, and both my businesses are online, and being able to keep traveling hinged on us making enough money online to keep doing it. We didn't start this with a savings, and we still had a ton of debt. So finding internet was really frustrating because we would be in the middle of nowhere, or just places that didn't have internet. And we had done a ton of research and spent a lot of money on all the stuff that helps you have good internet. We have this big antenna, we have this MiFi thing, and in some places, nothing still worked. So again, I had to be flexible. And is there a grocery store nearby? Is there a coffee shop nearby? Is there someplace I can go to get online? Is there something I can do if I can't get online today? So stuff like that. So I had a lot of calls that I do. I run teams with my business, and part of my profit depends on how well my team is doing. So I would try having team calls. My phone wouldn't be working, so I couldn't have the team calls. So that it was a challenge, but it forced me to be flexible and figure something else out, because there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't force my phone to work. No matter how hard I worked, my phone still wouldn't work in some areas. Even if I drove like an hour away and sat in my car, my phone still didn't work in some areas. So flexibility is my very like biggest lesson I learned living in the RV. And then my other big takeaway was it helped my relationship with my husband a ton. And that was huge. That's what I wanted it to do. And it did, because we were forced to be in the same place for a majority of the time. I wasn't all over the place like I am here when I'm in a house and he's gone all day. And then a lot of things I like to do are in the evening. Like I coach a swim team, that's in the evening. I teach fitness classes. A lot of them are in the evening. I do passion parties. They're in the evening, stuff like that. So I'm gone a lot during the evening, and then he's gone during the day, and we never see each other. So being in the RV forced us to see each other more, which was really good. It was really good for our relationship. So those are the biggest lessons and the biggest takeaways I got from living in the RV. So the other thing that people ask me all the time, and if anybody has questions, you guys ask them, because I want to make sure to get all your guys' questions answered. And if you are watching this recording afterwards and you didn't get a chance to ask your question, reach out to me. I love answering questions about this because I think it was an amazing 2.5 years. I loved every minute of it. And I actually wanted to keep living in the RV. It was my husband who was ready to get back into our house. He wanted a garage. He has a motorcycle. He likes to tinker. He wants all his tools there. And obviously we didn't have all that in the RV. So he was the one who was ready to come home back into a house. I actually could have stayed in the RV. And so that brings me to another thing, like lesson or thing that I learned, is that I can live anywhere. So there were places that I would never thought I would be okay in, whether it was too cold or too hot or too humid. And I got through all of it. And as long as I have my basic thing, like I have my husband, I have my dog, I have, the basic stuff I need. I have my computer where I can work. I have my phone where I can connect with people. I have just my basic needs. And, if I could go to a store and get some, healthy food, if there's a pool nearby, bonus. I just learned I can live anywhere. It doesn't matter to me where I live, because I know how to do the things I love anywhere. I mean, of course there's preferences. Like I'd rather be in California in the winter than we were in Cheyenne last winter. Cheyenne in the winter, bad. California in the winter, good. So of course there's preferences, but if I had to move anywhere, I would be okay. So a couple of questions that are coming in. So laundry. So yeah, I'm an athlete. I wear my clothes, they get all sweaty, and I do, I'll swim. I try to swim as much as possible. And then, biking, running, I'm always sweaty. And so somebody asked about laundry. We actually had a washer dryer unit in our RV, and a lot of them have those. It's one unit and you wash and dry your clothes in there. You can only fit like 5 things in there at once, and it takes a lot of energy. So if you're staying in an RV place where the electricity is included, it makes it super worth it. And especially I was home all day, or, one of us was home all day. So you can keep running it. So you can wash 4 things at once. And then when that's done, you dry them. When that's done, you wash another, or you can hang them out to dry. I just would rather dry. They get softer. So yeah. But if you're in a place where they charge for electricity, the electricity bill would be really high if you're running your washer and dryer constantly. So then it might be cheaper to go to a laundromat. Most RV parks have laundromats, and most of the place we stayed with friends sometime, like we pulled up in their driveway and plugged into their house. So we'd just wash our laundry there. We didn't love going to the laundromats. It's kind of a pain. But like, that's such a small part of life. And the funny thing is, I know that this is probably going to sound so disgusting, but since we didn't like doing laundry and it wasn't convenient at all, I would wear things longer than I used to. So for example, if I was wearing a sports bra and like a t-shirt and I was out running, the t-shirt I would put in the laundry, the sports bra, because it's that wicking stuff, I would just dry it. And I don't know, for some reason, sports bras and tank tops don't get as nasty to me as t-shirts. So I would just wear it again. So I would end up wearing sports bras like 3-4 times in a row. And the thing is, I'm going to shower after I work out anyway. And so if I put on something stinky and work out and it gets stinkier, I'm going to just shower after anyway. So I kind of stopped caring about putting on gross clothes, because I would rather do that than do more laundry. So I guess it's your priorities. So you can figure out what's worse for you, wearing stinky clothes or doing more laundry. And then like for jeans, you know, I mean, how dirty do adults get clothes? Like just everyday clothes. We'd wear jeans like 4 or 5 times. So the funny thing about all this, and this happened with trash too, when we got back into our house, I swear it took like, we only did 1 load of laundry the first month because we were so used to wearing things so many times that became the habit after 2.5 years. When we've been in our house for 3 months, 4 months. Now we do laundry every week again. We got back into the habit of wearing things once or twice and then putting it in the laundry. And that's the same with our garbage. We got in the habit of not having very much garbage because I don't know, we just didn't buy anything to have packaging. I did most of my stuff either on my computer or phone. We didn't have paper stuff laying around. Food, I just mostly bought like fruits, vegetables, rice, grains, stuff like that. So we didn't have a lot of prepackaged food. And now we put our garbage out once a month because our bin doesn't get full every week like it used to when you're used to being a consumer and having all this space for all this stuff. So those are 2 things that were really interesting. So great question about laundry. Does anybody else have any questions that, another question I get a lot is about pets, because we had 2 dogs during the RV at separate times, 1 each time. And they ask like, you know, what do you do with the dog? Well, one of us is home most all the time. Like even when I was training a lot, like we lived in Tahoe for 3 months and I was training like 30 hours a week. So I would be out of the house like 20 hours a week. Well, my husband would be with the dog. And then if he was out like mountain biking or whatever, I would be with the dog. Or if we were both out doing something, we would just make sure that we were only gone for a few hours at a time. And then somebody would be back in to let the dog out. And people are like, oh, well, doesn't it get hot? Because they think it's like a car. No, they're temperature controlled like a house. So it never gets hot. It never gets too hot or too cold. It's definitely warmer than a house or cooler than a house. But there's, we had AC in the RV. We had heat in the RV. So as far as dogs, they were totally always fine. You just had to, you know, we couldn't be away from home for 8 hours. So like if I was going somewhere for a long time and my husband was gone for a long time, I just brought the dog with me in my car, or he brought it with him wherever he was. And we did have a medium-sized dog. He was like 60 pounds. And a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now, he died. And then, so our next dog, we're like, well, we're in the RV. So we have this really small dog now. Where is he? Joey, come here. You want to come say hi? This is our dog now. This is Joey. Joey, say hi. So this is Joey. He is our dog now. Hi. So yeah, we were like, we live in a small space. We better get a small dog. So he's 16 pounds. And none of our dogs have ever liked driving and like riding in the RV at all. Like their house moving is not like their thing. So, but they were fine. They adapted. So anything else last minute before we wrap it up? Another thing that people ask me a lot in the RV, Joey, do you want to go down? Up or down? Another thing people ask me a lot about the RV is about the finance, about how much it costs. And so, like I said at the beginning, we bought a cheap RV. So our RV cost, like for the actual RV was really cheap, which is good because it's actually very expensive to live in an RV. And, you know, people are always like, oh, I'm going to do it to save money. There's not really a money saving option in the RV unless you're just like parking in the middle of like parking at Walmart every night, but then you're not plugged into anything, or parking in the middle of the woods, but then you're not plugged into anything. So you can't shower or have electricity other than what's in the generator. So as far as like long-term, it's pretty expensive. The maintenance alone on the RV is really, really expensive. We bought all new tires and they were, I don't remember how many tires we have. I think there's like 6 on our RV. I want to say 6. Was there 6? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember now. But anyway, they're like $1,000 a piece. We've had to do quite a few repairs because we did have an older unit. I think we spent 10 grand the first year of money we put into the RV. So it is expensive. RV spots are pretty expensive too, even month to month. The cheapest place we stayed was like, we were this close to the next RV. There was no like amenities at all. I mean, we obviously were plugged in, but I mean, there was a laundry room, but nothing like, it wasn't like an RV park. It was like RV spaces. And, that was $400 a month plus utilities. But most places, even the cheapest places, are like $600 to $800 a month. And those are the cheapest ones. So people think, oh, it's so cheap to live in an RV, but it's really not. It's expensive, but worth it if you have that money. If you're trying to save money, it's not going to work. Plus gas. I mean, ours is a diesel. So diesel's really expensive. It would be like $225 to fill it up, or sorry, $275 to fill it up. And that would last a long time, but it's still $275 every time you fill it up. So I actually wrote an ebook about this. It is all the questions anyone's ever asked me, plus all my experiences, my recommendations, places we went, why we did it, who we met along the way. So if you guys are interested in reading the full story, you can get that at foodfitnessfinancefun.com/RV. It's like I think it's $2.99. And then, and if you do have specific questions, just contact me. You can contact me through that same link, and just stay in touch, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. So thank you guys for being here. I'm super glad that you are interested in my RV life, my RV living. I had a blast, and we'll talk about it more at some point. And thanks again for being here. Stay in touch. All right. See you next time. Bye.